Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and today I'm making 2 cards for one using Simon Says Stamp's Beautiful Flowers stamp set, and this is a really pretty, as the name implies, floral stamp set with a lovely large image in it, which is beautiful, coloured up, but sometimes you just don't feel like colouring, so I thought I would have a go at using it in a way that doesn't need to be coloured. And as I said, this is going to be a 2 for 1. So I've started with a pink card base, a white card base and a white panel, and I'm going to be stamping the large floral stamp into the same place on all 3 of them. It took me a while to work this out because the stamp is so large it goes over the edge, and if I used my creative corner to move the card base out the way so that I could have the stamp off the bottom edge, then the stamp was too close to the top and the MISTI couldn't close. So where I usually would stamp on my card bases when they're open, I did fold and score them just so that I could turn them round the other way and be able to fit that stamp in properly so that it wasn't getting in the way of the MISTI door. My initial plan with this was to white heat emboss on the pink card base, pink heat emboss on the white card base, and then do the white panel opposite, which you may have noticed straight away you can't really do opposite of both. So I kind of changed my plan as I went along, but that's why you can see me using my anti-static powder tool, because originally I was thinking I was going to heat emboss this. After I decided that I wasn't going to heat emboss, I picked out Simon Says Stamp's Hollyhock ink, which is a kind of deep pink colour, and I'm going to use that for stamping my flowers. First, I'm stamping it onto the white panel, which I have positioned onto the pink card base. This is only held in place with the magnet, which is a little bit risky, but luckily it's a nice strong magnet and it did hold it in place so that that panel has the florals exactly where I will want it once I position it onto the card base again. I then moved the panel out the way so I could properly stamp onto that pink card base. And because I had it pressed up into the MISTI corner, it's easily going to stamp in exactly the right place, so it's not going to look messy where the outside portion had initially stamped when I'd been stamping the panel at the same time. I did find that I had to stamp 2 or 3 times for the panel and each card base just to make sure I got a nice impression. The middle of the most intricate flower was a particular problem I found. I think I just wasn't pressing all over as well as I could have done, but there again is the beauty of the MISTI tool, that you can restamp it multiple times without any issue. Once I had all 3 of my pieces stamped, I just quickly cleaned up the stamp and then I'll move my MISTI out of the way. And here you can see how those pieces look so far. Then I noticed there was a smudge of ink on my white panel, which I did get most of it off with my sand eraser, not quite all of it though, but I will actually end up covering it with my sentiment later, so it wasn't too big of a problem. I'm then going to be doing some die cutting into that white panel with a circle die. This particular circle die is actually the one from the Coffee Petites stamp set from STAMPlorations that I showed in a recent haul video. This is the first time I've used this die and it's not even being used with the stamp set it came with, but that's alright. So I'm going to cut that from the panel, kind of at random, trying to get different areas of the floral arrangement, but also leave the negative place looking interesting, I guess is what I'm going for. And I didn't really have an exact plan for the positioning, but I ended up doing 5 circles cut out from it because odd numbers look most pleasing. And I made sure that the outermost ones were going slightly off the edge of the panel, just again for some added interest. Although I also made sure I wasn't cutting off a corner or anything awkwardly so that the negative part of the panel remains intact in one piece. Once I'd finished the die cutting, I did bring in the sentiment die just to make sure that was going to fit how I wanted it and would look how I wanted it to. I have a few already cut versions which I keep in the packaging, and even though they weren't the colour I wanted, it did serve as a good guide for helping me work out that positioning. This die is a Poppy Stamps die and it is called Luscious Script Hugs. But before I sort the sentiment, I'm actually going to adhere down those circles. I was thinking I would hold them in place with some scraps of washi tape or post-it tape, but then I remembered that I recently got Glad Press and Seal in my haul as well that I showed, and I thought this would be the perfect time to try that. I did struggle a bit because the teeth on the box didn't want to cut the plastic, so I used my scissors instead and just cut off a strip that would be wide enough to go over the entire card. I'll trim off the rest of it and save that for later use. And this worked pretty well. I would say I was surprised, but I've seen it be used by other crafters on YouTube, so I did kind of know what to expect. But it was still interesting to experience it for myself. So I pressed it down well, and then I was able to lift up the panel and keep the circles in place so that I could flip it over. I did have to rearrange the circles very slightly because some of them weren't quite straight. And then I'm going to use some foam squares to pop up those circles. I have spoken in recent videos about how I'm trying to avoid using foam tape or foam squares or foam because it's not the best for the environment. However, I do still have some left over from card kits and the like, and I think I still have the end of a roll of foam tape left from before I stopped using it. So I think it is best to finish using what I have rather than wasting it. It would be worse to send it to landfill. So I will be occasionally using it up, even if I am trying to avoid using it as much as possible. So that's just an explanation in case you were wondering. I put that on the back of all of the circles, and then I'll remove the backing from those foam squares with my reverse tweezers and put it into position on the white card base so that I can adhere those circles perfectly into place on the floral arrangement stamped there. And whilst I'm doing that, today's secret question for the giveaway is, what is your favourite floral stamp set? Or if you don't have a favourite floral stamp set, then you can just let me know what your favourite flower is, or you could let me know both. I do really like this Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Flowers stamp set, and Altenew, of course, also makes really lovely floral stamp sets. I'm not sure I have a favourite, but I have quite a few that I like. Once you've left your comment, remember to head over to the Rafflecopter and let it know that you have commented today. Hopefully I will remember to update it with the tick box for today as well, and if I haven't, then do check back tomorrow because I will no doubt remember when I wake up if I haven't remembered to do it this evening. Having adhered all the circles onto the white card, I'm going to use that negative piece and I'll adhere that flat onto the pink card. Primarily, I decided to go with adhering it flat because, again, trying to avoid using foam tape too much, and I only had a handful of those foam squares left, so I didn't want to use them on this because it wouldn't really have been enough to properly support it. Next, I'm going to move on to the sentiment. Again, as I said earlier, this is the Luscious Script Hugs from Poppy Stamps. I've actually kept mine attached as they come. I haven't separated the two dies, and I just ran them through together twice with a snippet of white card, and I'm going to keep one white top layer, one white shadow layer, and then for the other top layer and shadow layer I used that same Hollyhock ink and the direct to paper or ink swiping or swinking technique to colour it in to match the stamping on my cards. I had left the dies in place in the negatives to do this, just to make it easier so they wouldn't be moving around too much, but that did leave the edges quite white, so I popped them out, put them on some scrap paper and went over them again just to help colour that up completely. I'll then layer the inner portion of the die onto the shadow portion of the die for each of the cards, and then bring in my Nuvo Smooth Precision glue pen to add glue onto them and adhere the layers together. I probably could have used Tombow glue for the thicker parts of the letters here, but for those very narrow parts, having a glue pen is definitely helpful. I'll pick the word layer up with my reverse tweezers, that just makes it easier, and then get it into position on the shadow layer. And then I will do exactly the same thing for the second one. I decided I would use the white hugs on the pink shadow for the white card and the pink hugs on the white shadow for the pink card. You could of course do either way around depending what you think looks best. I brought in the foam squares again to put behind some of the areas of the hugs for the white card, just where it would be overhanging the circles so that it's going to be nice and sturdy and not going to get crushed in the post. And then I'll just use liquid glue for the areas that will be over the circles to keep them nice and flush and adhered into place. And once again with the pink card, I'm just going to be adhering the word down flat. And I do put it in more or less the same position on both of the cards. At first I was thinking I would leave the cards like that, but I felt like they were still missing something. And I decided I would bring in some sequins. I don't actually use sequins an awful lot, but I'm very glad I decided to add them on here because I think it was the perfect finishing touch. These are Trinity Stamps sequins, and they are the Glass Slipper Confetti mix. I guess they're confetti, not sequins, because they don't have a hole in the centre, maybe? I think that's the reason, I'm not certain. In any case, I used my reverse tweezers to pick out sequins and arrange them onto the card. A couple of them did ping off, but luckily didn't go too far, so I was able to pick them back up and put them on the cards. And I'm creating a visual triangle with these sequins or confetti pieces. I have a cluster of 3 towards the top of the card. I have one which on the white card I tucked under the S, but on the pink card there's no space to tuck it under the S, so I instead tucked it under the G where that circle opening is. And then I also bring in 2 of the sequins or confetti over towards the left hand corner just to complete that triangle. And then used my QuickStik tool and Glossy Accents to pick up each of the confetti pieces in turn and adhere them to the card base in the position I had already planned. I went with the Glossy Accents because it has a nice strong hold and it also dries clear, so hopefully it won't show through these because they are kind of slightly see-through. And this did take me a little while to get all of the pieces in place, but the QuickStik tool definitely did make it easier. And of course, when I switched cards, for whatever reason, I actually tilted the white card, which moved the confetti pieces that were waiting to be adhered. So I had to kind of shift those back into position before I could put those into place, which didn't take too long, especially with the other card as a guideline for where everything should be going. And again, I'll use my Glossy Accents and adhere them into place. And once that's completed, that is both of the cards finished. They didn't turn out exactly how I had in mind. As I said, I've been thinking initially that I would heat emboss them, and I'd also been thinking about doing some ink blending. But even with the plan changing as I went along, I'm quite happy with how they turned out. I definitely think I prefer the white version, although the pink version is nice as well. I would love to hear which of the 2 you prefer, and you could let me know that in the comments alongside your answer to the secret question that I mentioned earlier for entering the giveaway. As usual, products used are in the description box and they are affiliate links where possible. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and shopping with the affiliate links if you do. Your support means a lot to me. There are a couple more videos on screen if you'd like to see more from me straight away. Otherwise, I'll thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!